What is going on, you guys? Brendan, aka Drip, back with another deck profile. In today's deck profile, we got my baby, Shaddoll's. A couple of you guys actually asked for an update on this deck profile. Quite a few of you guys actually. Since I told you guys I changed it up a little bit, switched up from the previous build right when Despia's first came out. I have had a lot more time to play with it and tweak it and to shape it to my liking. I actually changed it quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but I changed like probably 4 or 5, maybe even a couple more cards that I chose to run instead. Swapped out some rotations on some things. But it plays a lot differently and is a lot more consistent than my previous build. And I actually changed it shortly after making that build. I just didn't want to do a double upload and immediately change it, but I still believe in my last build. It's just as where that one trying to play is more of a middle ground, this one pretty much plays straightforward, if that makes sense. So I believe in both builds, but I preferred this one by far. Honestly, there's only a couple cards that's going to change out here on Burst of Destiny. But when we get there, I will probably do another upload there. So if you apologize in advance if the double upload on the pretty much the same deck profile is kind of going to be kind of frustrating. I'm sorry. I love this deck and I already have my build picked out for when that set comes out, and I just want to show you guys. But I'm not going to spoil anything yet when it comes to the Burst of Destiny stuff, what I'll swap in and swap out. I'm going to save that for the video. But again, this video may be a little bit longer, but if you're used to the channel, you know that that's pretty much the case anyways when I make videos. I'm going to go into depth on why I chose what I chose and reasonings why, and etc., along with talk about the format and stuff like that. But to start it off, pretty freaking standard. Alistair boy, you need 3 of them. Searcher's Invocation, generic fusion spell, etc. Nothing need to really say that. Buffs your fusions. 2 Aliber. Yes, if you haven't already tell, I have decided to stick with the Invoked engine for a couple of reasons. The first reason being, one, my personal opinion. When you first start out this deck, this is just me. This is what I believe. You may have a completely different opinion. That's you. That's the beauty of Yu-Gi-Oh! But my personal opinion, to start the game out, definitely with the support that we currently have right now, turn 1, Alistair is a more superior normal summon than Jester. But that can also vary depending on what's in your hand too. Now, if you have Jester and a handful of dolls, then yeah, that's different. Jester would be the better normal summon. But a more seasoned person with this deck would be able to understand that. But turn 1, Alistair, in my opinion, is a better normal summon because it get the toolbox for Invoked when it comes to the extra deck, I feel is more dominant at this time than Despia is currently. But Despia is going to only get better through time. For crying out loud, they literally have a continuous spell card coming out that is Meltdown. Yeah, it's a Despia version of Meltdown. So it's maybe over time Invoked will find its way out of Despia. But right now, the toolbox is just too good. And the cards you can utilize, along with how the extra deck monsters can float in and out of formats, because a lot of them have different elements and stuff like that find themselves in and out of the format. So yes, that's my reasoning on that. And then I run 2 Jester because I didn't want to clog on too many normal summons. On top of that, I'd rather see Alistair starting out than Jester anyways, because we run Branded Opening and it gives us instant access to this anyways. We don't really want this in our hand because Branded Opening plus a Shaddoll plus Alistair equals pretty much full combo. Then we do run 1 Tragedy. This is different, I think, than my last build. I don't think I was running Tragedy in my last build. This is mandatory in my personal opinion. You have to run this card because the best way you can keep your stuff floating is, I mean, they float anyways, but to float at its fullest potential, you need the field spell. And if they just like twin twist your field spell or something, you can just banish Tragedy and reset it, because you banish it to reset a branded spell or trap. So you can also reset opening if you wanted to. Also, when it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Despia monster from your deck to your hand, but you're going to use one of the effects return. Then we run one Dramaturge. Dramaturge is really good as a one-of. You have pretty much instant access to him like at any time with branded opening and Tragedy. So, and your big boss monster, one of your, not your big boss monster, but your Despia monster can special summon it from deck if like he's sent to the graveyard or something. So you always pretty much have instant access to this card. You don't need to run multiple copies. Now, if you're not running the Invoked variant, then yes, I would run a second copy. But in this variant, you don't want a brick, and yeah, I only need one. But like I said, if you're running like just Despia Dolls and not Invoked, or Despia Dark Lords or something like that, then yes, I would run two. Same with the Tragedy. I'd run another copy of Tragedy too, along with the third copy of Jester. But this is my favorite build. I don't prefer those other two. I like this one more. Just personal opinion. Then we got one for the Dogmatika. This is literally it. You don't need Maximus. Too many people are going to be running pretty much this deck. This deck's popularity is just going to get better, get more popular. On top of that, there's people that has outs like to our deck, and I don't want people plussing off of my combo, if that makes sense. So I just want to break boards and go off. That's one thing's different about this build than my last one. I'm not running any hand traps. I'm gonna let you go off, and I want to break your board, because this deck, my personal opinion, and just Shaddolls and Invoked, they legit just break boards. On top of that, they manipulate graveyards too. So the old classic vintage meme with Alistair, our graveyard, yeah. On top of that, Shaddoll Aerial, yes, I'm manipulating what's in your grave, my guy. So not only am I breaking your board, but I'm also banishing your stuff from grave too. So the deck naturally breaks boards. So and on top of that, there's so many things that kind of have to go right for the deck to float. And I don't want my hand traps to get in the way of that. Granted, there are light hand traps to kind of make them offensive, which if you've seen in my previous builds, I do run hand traps that work with this deck that are kind of nice. It's just too many decks nowadays can play through hand traps. On top of being able to play through hand traps, Crossout Designator is a card now. So the number one way, in my personal opinion, you can counter that card, in my personal opinion, is you just run board breakers. Now, if you're running hand traps, because if you run Crossout, most people that run crossouts, like Tri-Brigade for an example, they run extra bricks just to be able to have crossout targets. So they're minimizing their consistency on top of having to run extra bricks. As of where us, if we just run board breakers, not only does it take their crossout out of the situation, it can kind of sort of make mess with their own consistency, if that makes sense. Because they are expecting us to have all these other hand traps, like to slow them down. And it's just, I'm trying to explain it to where you can understand. I'm not really that good with words. But yeah, I prefer running the board breaker route, because this deck can naturally do that on its own. So that's it for the Dogmatika. I'm not running Punishment. If you're not fusing, you're losing. The old saying that it's been going around on the Yu-Gi-Oh community pretty much with Invoked and Dogmatika. So I took that out, and ever since I took it out, this deck's consistency is actually shot through the roof. Like, it's one of those things. It's one of those decks where I think the ceiling is as like high as it's going to get, and it just gets higher. Not even with needing new support. It's just deck building and stuff like that. And then on for the dolls. 2 Squamata. My doll lineup's going to be a little janky, but just bear with me and I'll explain everything. We got 1 dragon, Then we got one Beast, one MVP, Ariel, one Hedgehog. This is going to trigger people. One Wendy. And the MVP, really, of literally the freaking MVP, like my favorite main deck Shaddoll right now, is Falco. Now, hear me out. My reasoning on this, and I'll get into Falco in a second, these dolls lineups is Squamata is pretty much another copy of Construct. So that's why I've run 2 of it, and it's the only one I run 2 of because on top of it, it has mid to late game, it has the best flip effect because outside of Dragon, because it just straight pops a monster. So it has the best all around effect, and that's the reason why I'm running 2 of it instead of the others. Dragon, because obviously it's a generic back row removal. On top of that, it can bounce a card. And then Beast is Beast, Ariel is Ariel, Hedgehog is Hedgehog. I don't find myself ever needing a second copy of it. I have yet to have that happen because I either always have my dolls that I want engraved or already have the spell cards I want and trap cards and all that. Then Wendy, and hear me out on this. I know a lot of people's going to get triggered over this because, yes, Wendy is one of the best main deck Shaddoll monsters. I 100% agree with that. But if you're running the Despia package, elements matter, my guy. And wind does not sit well with Despia. It has to be light and dark. If you look at all my Shaddolls, only 2 of them are not light and dark. So yes, her effect is good, but not only like even though she's a one of, as long as you don't banish her, you could just keep looping her effect. With Falco can keep bringing her back and using her effect again. On top of that, Ab Cologne, when you send it, you can add it back from grave and then pitch it and just use her effect again. So, like, between Ab Cologne and Falco, my second Wendy has never came up. I have literally resolved Wendy like 2 or 3 times just off of Falco's effect. So, like, the one Wendy does not matter that much. And since I cut her to 1 and cut down on my elements that are not light and dark, on top of that making this deck board breakers, like I said, the consistency is ridiculous. What you do is you pretty much deck thin with this card turn 1 to get it out of your deck so you don't draw it, and you get it engraved. Then you just keep looping it from the graveyard with Falco and your other ways to doing so. And like I said, since I've done that, this deck's consistency is ridiculous. I totally advise it. But if you're not running like I said though, if you're not running the Despia package and you're just running Invoked Dogmatika dolls, then yes, two Wendy for certain. But I prefer the Despia package over that at the moment because the floating and the amount of grinding the Despia package, just being the small package it is, supplies you. Moving on to the board breakers / random monsters. Yugioh. I took out Santa Claus. It's not really the fact that his secondary effect was getting in the way. It got in the way a few times to where my opponent's plus. It's not like I said though, it's not really that effect. It's just the fact itself. I wanted to cut out all of the negatives of this deck that I could, as much as possible. And that being the main one, I didn't want that to even be a problem because in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking about is what I can do to break my opponent's board if I'm going second, or what I can do to establish a board. And the last thing I want to be thinking about is making sure I can out the card that I gave them. Because that card alone will break the board, yes, but I don't want them to draw cards. So I wanted to get rid of that in general. So yes, I can drop Yugioh on their noggin. Yes, he's a 3,300 body, but I'm not going to be as like panicked to out this card after giving it to him as I would Santa Claus, because Santa Claus gives them a draw. And we don't want our opponents to plus. And like my cards, my offense and defensive combo can pretty much out this kind of easy, whether it being on my turn or on their turn. Because not only that, it's a light monster, so it's fuel for your Shaddoll Fusion, then your constructs, and that's another reason too. So worst comes worst, you draw this going first, and you have no lights in hand. Guess what? You got just Cure. Just use it. Plain and simple. Then for another light, I can't get myself to cut this card, and that's Eldritch, the Golden Lord, just the one of. I'm telling you, puts in some serious work for me. I know a lot of people have cut this card, which I do kind of understand. But we run so many extra spell cards, and once like we get in the late grind game, even if you hard draw this and you didn't send it off Shaddoll Fusion, all your excess light and not all your excess lights, but all your excess spells and traps in your deck become fuel for this card just to freely non-destructive send. And it's 2 free, and on top of that, it's a free body. And when you use like if you resolve his effect mid late game and like you special summon himself, you are most likely going to win that game anyways because he gets big on top of the rest of your monsters you have anyways. So he doesn't destroy, he just sends. So like even though it does target, it sucks, but it is what it is. But it comes up, and I just want to have that utility in my deck. One of the spells. Spells are going to be kind of in janky order. I do apologize in advance for that, but I'll explain. 2 Meltdown, one Terraforming, and 1 Theater. I know a lot of people are going to get triggered because I'm not running a 3rd Meltdown. Hear me out. When this deck has so many different packages going on in it, like, yes, you want to see Alistair as fast as possible going first, but this deck can function without Alistair. The main reason we are even running Meltdown is the fact that it makes it to where our opponents can't respond to our fusion summonings, pretty much. Outside of that, like, that's pretty much the reason why people run Meltdown in general. But the 3rd Meltdown is just too many Alistairs, and you don't want too many Alistairs. You just want the one for that, for turn 1, turn 2, maybe. Excuse me, sorry. And then after that, Alistair is basically going to be used for buffing your fusions. The reason why is because when you make your invoked fusions, definitely your bigger ones, your theater will be able to resurrect them. So you'll never really, once you hard make them once, you'll never hard make them again because they just keep floating from the graveyard and like back and forth from the graveyard to the field because of theater. So it works out in that regard to where you'll never, once we get to the extra deck, you'll understand, you'll see what I'm talking about, because it's going to trigger some of y'all, and I'm sorry, but it actually is what works for me, and I know it makes me uncomfortable too, definitely when I first started playing it, because once you play Invoke for a while, like I have, you pretty much crutch on having, when you summon one, you know you got another one in the extra deck, so you don't have to worry about it. As of where now, when you run Despia, they just float, and you learn to get up out of that. You come out of your security blanket pretty much. That's it for the spell card. The field spells rather. Sorry, not field spell cards. Then we're running branded open because 3 branded opening. You want to see branded opening more than you want to see Jester, because this and Windy is nutty, because you plus so hard with this and a Shaddoll. Because it doesn't pitch for cost. On top of that, you want to get this card in graveyard as fast as possible anyways. There's certain situations where I've even thought about early testing this deck, even though I took it out because it just kind of got in the way after a while. But there's some situations where I just really wanted to get this in the grave as fast as possible. And then moving on, we have 3 Nadir. Nadir is Nadir. Thank God this card kind of got reprinted, even though it's still kind of expensive. Hopefully some of y'all can have easier access to it now, because Dogmatika is the GOAT, and it's so easily splashable in a lot of decks. Nadir is pretty much a 1-card starter. It's a 1-card combo for this deck, as long as we have access to App Cologne, pretty much. It's ridiculous. There's not much I need to say. Yeah, it locks you out of your extra deck, but it's just for that turn. It doesn't have as big lock and restriction as Punishment does. So that's why you don't run Punishment anymore. Then we got 3 Shaddoll Fusion. This card's one of the most busted fusion spells to ever be made. It's Don't really have to say nothing as long as your opponent controls something from the extra deck. You can use material from the deck. Ridiculous. That's how we get Golden Lords of the Grave, pretty much. Then we have 2 Invocation. Standard, pretty much. Don't need less, don't need more. Not in this version. If you were, for some odd reason, running Desires in this deck, yeah, I'd run 3. Last 2 remaining spells is I added L, and then I added Foolish. Foolish is freaking ridiculous, guys. Oh my goodness. I was running Foolish in the early testing of this deck, and I really don't understand why I took this card out. This card is ridiculous. Then L, it kind of goes hard in the paint too, because it dodges Imperm and Veiler right now, which is really nice, and those 2 hand traps are really big. So that's the reason on that. A lot of you will understand, ask why I'm not running any draw cards. One, I don't have enough money for Prosperity, first of all. Second of all, I don't like Desires, and same with Prosperity too. Prosperity, I like Prosperity, just not in this deck, because the last thing the extra deck is too tight anyways, and what this deck likes to do is it likes to grind anyways, and if you're getting rid of cards in your extra deck just to try to combo first turn, then you're not going to really, you're taking away what this deck likes to do anyways, and that's, like I said, grind. So you don't want to banish resources just to try to add 1 card to your hand. It's better to try to maximize on consistency and run consistency cards than run cards that hurt you for consistency. So pretty much you want generic consistency cards, which is pretty much what a lot of this deck does anyways. Like Opening, Foolish Burial, Nadir Servant, 1-card combo. And on top of that, if you want draw, you can keep looping and Resolve Beast pretty much over and over again. And if you don't understand how I'm going to do that, I'll show you in 2 seconds. The last 2 cards in the deck is Resh and Schism. Resh is how you keep looping Beast. You just literally keep looping Beast, Resh, and you just keep drawing 2 off of Beast, and plus and even harder. Schism is Schism. I can't believe this card was like a $30 to $40 card and got reprinted and immediately went down to like $3. It's crazy. I definitely think if you don't have them already, pick them up now, because, like I said, this deck's popularity is only going to get better, and depending on how the format shifts, this deck can get really good. Definitely considering Schism against Tri-Brigade is like Tri-Brigade's kryptonite right now, because Schism makes Winda, and Winda says no to Revolt, because Revolt can't resolve at all. So yeah, fun games. But that's it for the main deck. Clean 40. At this current time, not a single card I would change. No hand traps required. No nothing. I just want to break the board, establish mine if I have to, or I just make my board as consistency as possible. And this deck's consistency is actually really high. Like, it's really, really good. Moving on to the extra deck. The extra deck right now is perfect. It took me like a little bit to figure out what I was wanting to run instead of like what I was wanting to swap in and out when Burst of Destiny, which, like I said, I'm not going to reveal what I took in, what I put in, what I took out on that list. You guys will just have to wait and find out. Starting out for the links, I got one Maiden, generic light, gravity controller for our fusions, and also for the main deck, if you couldn't already tell, I'm not main decking Super Poly. I know a lot of y'all were probably going to be like keyboard warrioring it, but I'm sorry. There's not enough light and dark going around right now in order for me to main deck Super Poly, but don't freak out. I'm running it in the side. But some of y'all are going to be like, well, Drip, what about Kaiju? You're giving him a light on the Kaiju and you could just Super Poly it away. Yes, but that's not enough utility for me to want to main deck Super Poly. What about Dragoon? Well, I have a Kaiju for the Dragoon. I'm not worried about stuff like that enough for Super Poly. What about Ultimateness? Again, Kaiju. And if I know I'm running Drytron, I'll just side in out Super Poly anyways. But since I took Super Poly out, that was one of the biggest things that hurt my consistency, definitely, because against the decks that I was playing against, there's a lot of Earth monsters going on right now, not just by just Tri-Brigade in general. There's a lot of Earth and just non-light and dark targets. So until it gets more popular, Super Poly is going to stay in the side for now. And since I took out Super Poly in the main, that means I'm not running Predator, Plant, Anaconda anymore either. I decided to run Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep goes hard in the paint, like in this deck. It's ridiculous. Definitely when you pair it up with Schism, good grief. It's really gross because we run Kaliga in this build. So like you mainly want to sit on the Schism so you don't have to shotgun the window. So you just make Kaliga. After you make Kaliga, and then you pretty much link the Kaliga and whatever you have away on your turn into this. Go combo, and then you can fusion here and bring back your Kaliga again. To Kaliga lock them again if for some odd reason you don't OTK them, because sometimes this deck takes 2 or 3 turns before it gets enough resources up to OTK. So pretty much you get yourself out of the Kaliga lock after you lock your opponent, and then make your board, and then bring the Kaliga back with Cross Sheet, and then just proceed OTK turn 3 pretty much. That's actually it for the links. Onto the fusions in order. 2 Construct. You don't need a third. Third never comes up. If you need a third, then you're just going to lose that game anyways. 2 Construct plus 2 Squamata is pretty much all you need. And that's sometimes still overkill. 2 of my favorite Shaddoll monster outside of Bay. Don't let Bay know that because Construct might get mad at me. 2 Ab Cologne. Ignore me, my second secret rare has yet to come in, so please don't crucify me. 2 Ab Cologne. This card is freaking ridiculous. Oh my goodness. This card is nuts. How it just negates something permanently. I don't know, man. It's my favorite Shaddoll extra deck monster besides Construct. Then 2 Winda. Winda has win in the name, so you just win when you summon it. Nothing left to be said. But 2/2 split on all of them. 2/2/2. It really nice. I never really summon a second Winda. But when it's there if I need it. But that's it for the Shaddoll extra deck monsters. On to the Invoked, and this is where I was saying a lot of y'all will understand. 1 Makava, 1 Kaliga, 1 Ogoides. That's it. And y'all are going to be like, some of y'all's brains are going to pop. I'm sorry. The reason why is because Makava and Ogoides, whatever your fucking name is, these 2 float because they're level 8 and above, and they can float with your Despia cards. Kaliga, if you need a second copy of Kaliga, you just bring it back off Cross Sheet pretty much once it goes to grave. So basically, you're running an unlimited amount of Makava and an unlimited amount of Ogoides. There are several situations where I've made Ogoides, and then pretty much out of some of my opponent's board, they destroy it. And then, like later on, during their turn, they'll bring it back. It'll come back off of my Despia's effects, and then it will just keep going off and breaking boards from there. It's really gross, but once you get yourself to where you're comfortable with that, you'll understand how they just float, and you can get another Makava. You can get your Makava back easily. And then we run 1 Intis because Intis helps you break boards, basically. And then for this moment in time, 1 Cortez, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. This card is so underrated, it's ridiculous. I can't begin to express how disgusting this card is. There were certain situations where I was facing down a Dragoon and I didn't have the Kaiju in my hand, and I hard made this by what I had in my hand, plus, because I had the field spell. And my opponent didn't negate with a Dragoon, bro. It was freaking nuts. And I proceeded to go to battle phase, attack over the Dragoon, which they took 200, and then his effect burns him for their attack, dude. So I hit him with, and pretty much he took 32. Because he took the Dragoon's attack by burning and then took the 200 attack difference. It's freaking nuts. This card is ridiculous. This card alone has won me games. How busted it is. But like I said, when it comes to Despia monsters, you never need more than one anyways because they just float so easily. Like I never have needed a second Quartus. Well, I take that back. There was probably one situation where I needed a second Quartus, but it's okay. The deck functioned without it, and I ended up getting the first one back anyways. But the extra deck, in my personal opinion, for this build is perfect. There's nothing I would change. I've never needed Anaconda. Cross Sheep has just always been better for me ever since I made that switch. Now, if I was running Soup probably in the main, then I would probably swap the 2 back out. If like Light and Darks get more relevant. But no. And some of y'all have actually been wanting to see a side deck, and I'll show y'all a side deck. Generically speaking, I feel like this is the best side deck for me, for what's in the format at this time. Just to cover all bases. The MVP being Lancia. Lancia is Lancia. This card is nuts. It hits a lot of decks. Hits a mirror match. It's the Rogue Dino, because I think Dino's a rogue. Just me, because I'm an old Dino player. Hits Eldritch. Screw that deck. Hits Tri-Brigade. Brain Dead Tri-Brigade, which I can't say nothing because got some sauce with that stuff coming up soon, so be on the lookout for that, by the way. Hits a lot of stuff. And then next we got Super Poly. Sorry for the mixed rarities. I really want ultis, but your boy's poor. So 3 Super Polys. Covers a lot and does what I want this deck to do, and that's break boards. Poor man, so I don't have Lightning Storms. I sold my Lightning Storms. So we got Twin Twisters. Twin Twisters is Twin Twisters, helps you break boards. Back row, and I can't stand back row. Another way of I'm telling you I can't stand back row, and probably the MVP outside of Lancia in the side deck is you're not allowed to play. 3 Royal Decree and 1 Red Reboot. I'm tired of people flipping order on me. I'm tired of playing against Eldritch. That deck just needs to die. So even though they still get their graveyard effects, Royal Decree usually slows them down enough to where they can't keep popping my shit, and I can eventually OTK them. And then we have 1 Duster, because like I said, I can't stand back row. Takes no skill to play it. And then Pankratops, because it covers both combo and back row. So pretty much, it might seem like top heavy on back row hate, which it kind of is, but that's mainly because our deck itself can handle combo decks. On top of that, this and this is for combo. This, and this. Well, this is for combo too. So, and that can also be for control. So this is both combo, back row. So it's very balanced. I took Droll out because Droll, most of the people decks that add a lot are combo decks, and Droll, my deck can easily deal with like combo decks. On top of that, Droll's a wind. So you want to try to keep your elements with your because like the way this deck works with elements and stuff like that really big. Excuse me. So you just want to make sure you have all your bases covered. Yes, Pank is Pank and it's an Earth. Excuse me again, hiccups. But it don't matter. Pank is worth it. So yeah, but that's it for the main, extra, and side. Like I said, normally I don't show my side, but I want to show you guys because some of y'all have been wondering what to side because some of y'all are newer players and wanted to know. If you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comment section below, or feel free to join the Discord, become part of the D2D fam. If you feel like you are a family-oriented person, like to make friends, help each other out, trade, talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, talk about anime, just share your life, or pretty much just share your life, like stories and stuff like that, whether it be with Yu-Gi-Oh or not, and you're family-oriented, again, like I said, feel free to join the Discord down below. That's the kind of environment I like to have, and that's the kind of environment I like to keep. If you feel like you can be a part of that, then by all means, come on down, join us, and join the fam. But with that being said, guys, you have a wonderful day, night, morning, evening, whenever you're watching this video. Guys, I hope you guys are staying safe out there in the age of COVID. And y'all stay safe, drip out, peace, good dueling, my guys.